equals 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 I'm Cultivating Immortals in Online Games author, Cyan Wings copy. Dugu Zhou was burdened by destiny all his life, his skills were destroyed, his kinship was cut off, his friends were killed, he was charged with the crime of murdering his father, and even his only beloved Yesu was lost. In despair, he wears the spiritual jade that protects Yesu's remnant soul and travels to every corner of the world, just to find the remaining soul of Yesu and stay with him in the next life. Until one day, when his lifespan was approaching, he imitated a fantasy, and in a trance, he saw Yesu being chased by several monsters. He took action to kill those monsters, and a strange voice sounded in his ears, "Ding, you slay demons, and get 3 low-grade spirit stones. Ding, you slay demons, and obtain the secret book Reverse Sword Art. Ding, you slay demons, and obtain the precious healing elixir. Ding, you are promoted to level 1 and your skill recovers by 1%. And Yesu, who he just saved, raised his sword at him angrily, and scolded, "How dare you rob me? Dugu Zhou." Ye Zhou met a strange player named Dugu Zhou in the holographic online game Zhongtian. "I don't understand common sense, I don't know how to operate, I don't go offline to rest, and I often look at him with very deep eyes." Ye Zhou just accepted a handsome apprentice of the game and taught him to upgrade. Just as Ye Zhou was thinking about meeting his apprentice or not, the game server announced player Nightboat triggers the final plot sword tomb to unlock the final boss of the game, Dugu Zhou. Ye Zhou, coincidentally, it has the same name as his apprentice. Dugu Zhou Gong, Ye Zhou, this article will enter V on November 1st because most of the content of the article is cultivating immortals in the game. The protagonist is always an ancient person rather than entering modern social life, and the game is closely related to the ancient world, so it is classified as ancient. Content tags: Special Love Xiangxia Cultivation Search Keyword, Protagonist, Dugu Zhou, Ye Zhou, Nightboat, Supporting Role, To Be Determined Others, Holographic Online Games, Xiaoxian 1-sentence Introduction, Mistaken Boss for Apprentice Intention, a person with firm belief can overcome all difficulties and obstacles. VIP strongly recommends the medal. Dugu Zhou was exhausted by destiny, his skills were destroyed, his kinship was cut off, his friends died, he was charged with the crime of murdering his father, and even his only beloved Yesu was lost. In despair, he wears the spiritual jade that protects Yesu's remnant soul and walks around every corner of the world, just to find Yesu's remaining soul and stay with him in the next life. Until one day, when he was nearing his lifespan, he imitated into an illusion and saw that Yesu was being chased by several monsters in a trance. Only then did he realize that he had unknowingly entered a world of holographic online games. The article depicts an interesting holographic online game world from the perspective of a cultivator. The content of the game is interesting and diverse, and the players are lively and lovely, which makes people yearn for it. At the same time, the game world is inextricably linked with the original world of self-cultivation. The suspense and foreshadowing of the article are excellent, making people involuntarily explore the stories in the book. The author's writing style is steady, witty, and humorous, and the characters are vividly portrayed, which shows the readers a colorful and diverse world in an orderly manner. Equals 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 equals. There is a simple tea shed on the outskirts of the town near the Kanglan Mountains. There are a few people sitting in the shed. They have no luggage, and there is no dust on their faces. The locals look rather eccentric. The owner of the tea house is not surprised. He has seen this kind of person a lot. This mountain is called Tiansu. Outside the strange rock, there is only a lifeless snow-capped mountain range. No one knows what lies behind the Kanglan Mountains, and no one knows what lies beyond the end of the human world. Until 10 years ago, 2 sword chi, one clear and one turbid, pierced the sky, the pillars of the sky were broken, the mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. In a 3-month-long fire rain, the original Tianzi disappeared, and the ice and snow of thousands of years melted and turned into a mist that stretched for thousands of miles. A year later, a verdant green appeared at the foot of Kanglan Mountain, and the first grass sprouted on this lifeless land. 3 years later, people gradually came here to open up wasteland. People found that the soil here is particularly suitable for the growth of crops, and it slowly became a small town. Afterwards, a tea shed appeared at the end of the town, providing expensive tea for those who came to visit the Kanglan Mountains. The tea shed is built at the end of the road, and further ahead is the unknown. Most travelers will stay in the small town, go to the tea house to drink a bowl of rough tea, look at the Tianzi ruins in the distance, and say some weird words. In the words of these people, a person named Duguzhou was mentioned countless times. It's all Duguzhou's fault. If it weren't for him, Zhou Zongtian wouldn't have. When the boss brought the tea bowl to the guest officer, he heard the conversation he had already heard. The boss leaves the table and scratches his ears impatiently. He has listened to Duguzhou's story for several years, and everyone hears it. There are very few people who have really seen Duguzhou, and what everyone is talking about is just those few things. Duguzhou, who committed the crime of murdering his father, slaughtered his master, and seriously injured the master of another divine sword, Sujian, Yeshu, and took him away. After that, Yeshu's whereabouts are unknown, and when Duguzhou appeared in front of people again, he had already refined 2 divine swords, so Yeshu must have no bones left. Duguzhou, holding 2 swords of creation, stepped on the pillar of heaven and tried to become as a sinner. The was angry and knocked him down from the world. Annoyed, Duguzhou took out his double swords and cut off the pillar of heaven. Zhou Zongtian lost his pillar and fell to the world, and the realm of the gods ceased to exist. There is no possibility for cultivators in the human world to become gods. But I only dare to scold him in private. If I really meet Duguzhou, who would dare to speak out against him? The tea shed is very small, and the 2 guests wearing Taoist robes did not deliberately avoid it. He is just an ordinary person, and he does not understand the love and hatred of the immortals. In the view of the owner of the tea shed, if it wasn't for the collapse of the Tianzi, the imperial court sent a group of slaves to open up wasteland here, and the farmland could be freed from slavery, and he would not have become a rich peasant with dozens of acres of land. The owner of the tea house couldn't refute what the guests said. He could only pretend not to hear and stare down at the ground under his feet. In the spring, a few weeds were drilled through the cracks in the ground, and the fresh green looked very gratifying. The tea shed is empty. The east wind blows, even in the spring, the cold wind is still a bit biting. The owner of the tea shed sees that all the guests are gone, and he packs up the stall and prepares to go home. At this time, a black-clothed man wearing a hat and a package walked into the tea house and sat at the corner table. A bowl of hot tea. The man put the package on the table, making a slight clanging sound. The package is obviously a weapon. The boss didn't dare to neglect, and hurriedly served a large bowl of steaming tea. When putting down the tea bowl, the boss inadvertently saw the man's face and couldn't help but stay for a while. "My darling, this person is too good looking. He is better than the tofu zishi in the small town, better than the white flowers in the mountains in spring, and better than the snow outside the window in the cold winter. Also colder than snow." The boss dared not look directly at him, so he returned to the pantry and peeked at the man in black through the gap in the shed. I saw him stretch out his hand to pick up the tea bowl. His fingers were clearly articulated, as thin and slender as bamboos. The fingers on the back of his hand were covered with scars from swords, like jade that was broken and stuck together again. Gives a shocking sense of pain. The man in black drank light and hot tea slowly, and his every move was pleasing to the eyes, obviously very well educated. On the palm full of knife marks is the jade of excellent condition, which looks very unmatched. The man in black frowned slightly and seemed to be in a bad mood. He put his other hand on the package, and the sound of metal colliding came, and the tea house owner couldn't help shrinking his neck. At this time, a slightly chilly spring breeze blew, and an early spring apricot flower was blown by the wind to the warm jade in the palm of the man in black. The pale pink petals made the warm jade even more lush. It's a vibrant color. The man in black looked at the palm of his hand and smiled softly. The contours of his face under the bamboo hat softened, and the chilling air dissipated a lot with the smile. The owner of the tea shed suddenly felt relieved, and boldly poked his head out of the tea room and asked, "Guest officer, do you want to continue the tea?" "No need." The man in black put down a piece of silver, picked up the package and left the tea shed. The boss saw that he was heading towards the Kanglan Mountains where no one dared to step, so he chased after him and shouted from behind, "Kegwan, there is a forbidden place in front of you, where there is no return. World Demon King Duguzhou is hiding in the Kanglan Mountains to cultivate, so he can't go." The man in black had no intention of paying attention to the owner of the tea house. Hearing this, he stopped, turned slightly, raised his hat, and revealed most of his face. His body seemed to be integrated with the mist-shrouded Kanglan Mountains, and a line of sight that saw the turbulence of the world fell on the boss, and his voice was not happy or angry, "I'm under Duguzhou." After saying that, he put down his bamboo hat, turned around and continued to walk towards Kanglan Mountain, and disappeared into the clouds and mist in a short while. A long time after he left, the owner of the tea house sat on the ground and whispered to himself, "Is he Duguzhou? How come?" The tea house owner muttered, "Impossible." The boss said again. Duguzhou, a black-clothed man who made the boss puzzled, has stepped on Kanglan Mountain at this moment, and he seems to feel that the former site of Tianzu was once under his feet. Sen the sword groaned. "Quiet!" Duguzhou shouted. The contents of the package twitched restlessly. Duguzhou untied the package and found 2 broken swords inside. The double swords of creation in the past have now become 4 pieces of scrap iron full of rust. Many. Duguzhou picked up the plain sword, hung the piece of warm jade on the hilt of the broken sword, and waited quietly for a moment. The warm jade and the broken sword did not respond. Neither here. Shangshengbai falls to Huangchuan, and both places are invisible. In the past 10 years, Duguzhou has traveled to every corner of the human world, but cannot find the whereabouts of the remnant soul of Yezhu. There is no possibility of seeing each other again in this life. Duguzhou only wants to ask for an afterlife, but Yezhu has no afterlife. He put away the broken sword, clenched the warm jade, and walked firmly into the depths of the fog. No one knows what is on the other side of the Kanglan Mountains. The Tianzu stands here, and no one can walk out of this mountain range. Even if the Tianzu disappears, the fog will make people lose their way, or die in the clouds, or return to the foot of the mountain. Duguzhou's current skill is similar to that of a cultivator who has just started, and there is only a dead end to continue. But he didn't plan to look back. Behind him was the past that was tricked by destiny, his unbearable life, and a world without night boats. Duguzhou stepped forward firmly, feeling strong resistance at every step, and it seemed that it was difficult to move forward. But even if it is just an inch, Duguzhou has to move forward an inch. He moved forward step by step with difficulty. The clouds and mist covered his eyes, the cold air on the top of the mountain froze his body, and Duguzhou's body was frosted. Zhou had already turned into an ice sculpture. Consciousness gradually blurred. Duguzhou involuntarily recalled the half-life, like a lantern before death. In a trance, he seemed to see the young Yezhu, jumping in the mountains and forests, fighting several monsters. Duguzhou chuckled. Yezhu was his elder. When he met Yezhu, Yezhu was already the elder of Qingtian sword sect, standing in front of him in plain white robe, glancing at him indifferently, he said coldly, "Come with me." When they first met, Yezhu was tall and cold in his heart. How could he be a teenager? However, it is not bad to have such a hallucination before death. At least you can see the carefree appearance of Yezhu. Thinking like this, Duguzhou's fog gradually dissipated, and the young Yezhu's figure became clearer and clearer. The young Yezhu was dressed in white, and was not afraid of being besieged by several monsters. He held an ordinary iron sword and fought hard to kill the monsters. 2 fists are invincible to 4 hands, the monsters keep leaving scars on the young Yezhu. Yezhu is pale and weaker. Even if it was a fantasy, Duguzhou could not helplessly watch Yezhu get hurt. He picked up the black broken sword from the package, which was what Duguzhou could only get after his father died. The Xianjian was something he had wanted all his life, but after he got it, he abandoned it like a bad sword. When Duguzhou took the sword, the young Yezhu dexterously distanced himself from the monster, took out a bottle of medicine and drank it, and said to himself, with the current blood volume, we have to deal with these elites. It is still difficult to blame, but fortunately there are many types of red medicine. Juvenile Yezhu was dipping into the blood when he saw a black-clothed man rushing into the group of monsters, carrying a tattered iron sword, and the elite monster who had finally cut him into blood and snatched it away. Night boat. Duguzhou's meridian has long been broken, and at this moment, forcibly urging the Xianjian can only make one move. Fortunately, the monsters are not strong, and they can be slaughtered with one move. After the monster fell, Duguzhou also stood unsteadily, half kneeling on the ground, holding the hilt of the black sword in his hand, trying his best to suppress the churning blood in his chest. Even if it was a fantasy, Duguzhou didn't want to vomit blood in front of Yezhu. After barely stabilizing his body, Duguzhou was about to look up at Yezhu when a strange voice suddenly came from his ear. Ding! You slay demons, and get 3 low-grade spirit stones. Ding! You slay demons, and obtain the precious healing elixir grass. Ding! You cut demons and gained experience 100*6. Do you use experience to upgrade, whether what is this? Duguzhou was confused. At this moment, a strong wind brushed past his ears, and the young Ye Feng, whose wounds were not fully healed, came forward with a sword to ride the wind. His eyebrows were full of anger, and he shouted, "How dare you rob me, strange!" Duguzhou stared at Yezhu's face and whispered, "Could it be that I have already arrived?" The moment she saw Duguzhou's face, the tip of Yezhu's sword slanted and changed its trajectory. Zhuzongtian is a keyboard online game. It has set countless brilliant records in the game industry. It is a classic in the minds of many players, and it has declined since the advent of the mobile game era. After 10 years of silence, Zhuzongtian made a comeback with brand new technology. It is known as the world's first holographic online game. After the overwhelming announcement, the public beta began. Player Yezhou is a loyal fan of the keyboard era of Zhuzongtian. He purchased a holographic helmet in advance and entered the game as soon as the public beta was launched. On the first day of the game, everyone is a novice, exploring the gameplay a little bit in the new mode. The game company that has been dormant for many years is very cunning. It not only wants to recall old players, but also wants to retain more new players. In order to make everyone have the same starting point, many changes have been made to the game. Among these changes, hiding the IDs and titles of players, mobs, NPC, and bosses in the game is the most embarrassing. The game concept of Zhuzongtian is to focus on an immersive online game, presenting the most real fairy world to players. In this world where people, fairies, and demons are rampant, ordinary people can't identify other people's identities at all. Because of this setting, Yezhou suffered a lot. For example, he took on a novice quest to hunt in the wild, and when he lured a cute young white rabbit with carrots, he was burned to death by the flame-breathing white rabbit. The white rabbit who burned him to death also roared at him, "I don't have eyes, I'm a monster player." For another example, at night he took on a mission to exorcise a village ghost, and another handsome young man beside him also took over the mission from the village chief. Zhou extended an olive branch to the other party and sent out an invitation to form a team. The player smiled sullenly and opened his mouth to Yezhou. It turned out that the so-called player was a hidden ghost in the village. Even if you go to the suburbs to collect herbs, you may get a whisker from ginseng, and hear ginseng scolding the sky, "Game company, you. Why choose one? Will the Eldar randomly assign adult ginseng?" Ye Zhou could only comfortably touch the small head of ginseng, and showed a schadenfreude smile, secretly glad that he chose the human race. It was not too miserable after all. There are 6 races to choose from in Zhuzongtian: human, demon, ghost, spirit, and strange. In the promotional video, each of the 6 race full-level accounts has its own merits. The human race is handsome, and the demon race is beautiful. Demons are powerful, ghosts are weird, spirits are ethereal, and aliens are mysterious. Each race has its allure. Who would have guessed that after the service, the demons are animals that have not yet cultivated human form, the spirits are elixirs such as Ganoderma, ginseng, and snow lotus, the ghosts die in the light, the demons and aliens leave. Zhou has not seen it before, but he believes that these 2 races should have their own sufferings. The human race is not bad compared to other races, but it is also the most mediocre of all races. Other races have a certain attribute that is particularly high, while the human race is good in all aspects, but it is also mediocre. After stepping on the pit several times in a row, Ye Zhou finally found a forest full of mobs and no players, and worked hard to level up. Seeing that these monsters were going to be killed, but they were snatched first, how could Ye Zhou not be angry? Ye Zhou was by no means confused by beauty, but at this moment doubted the identity of the monster thief. The face value data of the initial human account of Ninefold Heaven is 80% of the player's original appearance, and there is a chance to increase the face value after upgrading. But they didn't even have a human shape at first. At best they were the smoothest fur among a group of little white rabbits or the best looking among a bunch of medicinal herbs. The appearance is too high, there must be something abnormal. Either the monster hunter himself looks better than the star, or he is not a player. Ye Zhou, who had stepped on too many pits, was very cautious. He changed the trajectory of the kendo in time, and the tip of the sword moved from the top of his head to his shoulders. Ye Zhou flipped his wrist lightly, and the long sword was placed across the neck of the monster thief. He asked vigilantly, "Who are you, player?" "NPC." The other party didn't answer, just stared at Ye Zhou. Dugu Zhou wanted to tell the boy Yesu his name, but he couldn't speak his blood. If he spoke at this time, a mouthful of blood would be sprayed on Yesu's snow-white clothes. Dugu Zhou didn't want this to happen. He didn't know whether it was an illusion or an afterlife, and it didn't matter if he was able to see the living night boat. Dugu Zhou slowly raised his hand and held Yesu's sword tip. Blood dripped down his palm. The pain was as real as the Yesu in front of him. Young Yesu showed a look of horror, let go of the sword and jumped back a few steps, distanced himself from Dugu Zhou, and said in a surprised tone, "Can you still grab equipment like this?" "Equipment? Player? NPC?" A few words that he had never encountered before came into Dugu Zhou's ears. He looked at the iron sword that Yesu had released, and with just a glance, he recognized that it was a spiritual sword that could be further tempered. Dugu Zhou saw the lingering grass falling from his feet. He knew that this herb could treat some simple injuries, and could also add some spiritual energy to the body. Although he can't connect his meridians, he can suppress the churning blood in his body at the moment. Dugu Zhou decisively picked up the herb and swallowed it, absorbing the aura in the herb. "Hey, the human race can't directly absorb the medicinal herbs, you have to go to the city to find an alchemist to make medicinal pills, otherwise it will be wasted." Yesu reminded. In an instant, the spiritual energy disappeared into the meridians, and Dugu Zhou's internal injury was temporarily suppressed. He looked at Yesu and slowly said, "I have a special physique, it doesn't matter." Dugu Zhou naturally knows that elixir cannot be taken directly, it will waste a lot of medicinal properties. But since he merged with Xianjian, he can no longer be regarded as a human being. While speaking, Dugu Zhou painted the blood of his palm on Yesu's iron sword. Even if the sword was broken, the blood of the sword master would be a great supplement to ordinary spiritual tools. The iron sword greedily absorbed the blood-containing sword energy, and the blade was sharper. After all, it is mortal iron, it can't bear too much sword energy, and it can't continue to contain only 3 drops of blood. Duguzhou wiped off the excess blood on the sword and returned the sword to Yezhu. Yezhu looked at him alertly and refused to take the sword. He doesn't remember me. Duguzhou thought sadly. The more I don't remember, the more Duguzhou feels that this place is real, not a fantasy. The corners of Duguzhou's eyes swept across the corpses of several monsters on the ground, recalling the grab monsters that Yezhu just said and the sounds of obtaining various spiritual stones, secret books and medicinal herbs in his ears. A little thought. Is it possible that Yezhu is not besieged by monsters, but wants to get these things and attack monsters? Is the back of the Kanglan Mountains such a secret realm where treasures can be obtained by hunting? Could it be that Yezhu's soul came to the back of the Kanglan Mountains when the Tianzu collapsed? Duguzhou suppressed the doubts in his heart, clasped his fists and said, Xia Duguzhou, I don't know that these monsters are your prey, I am really sorry. In order to apologize, I can only retemper the spirit for your excellency. Sword, as compensation. He handed out the spirit sword again, and at the same time quietly held the warm jade in the palm of his hand, and sent it to Yezhu with the hilt. The person who speaks fluently is either a middle schooler or an NPC, which one are you? Yezhou continued to ask without taking the sword. Secondary disease? NPC? Duguzhou tried his best to analyze 2 completely unfamiliar words, the second one was completely unverifiable, and the first one could be guessed to be a disease. Duguzhou can only answer cautiously, I am indeed injured. You admit to being sick, are you, so frank? Yezhou was surprised, and his vigilance faded. Duguzhou vaguely felt as if he had admitted some kind of extraordinary illness through Yezhu's expression, but when he said this, he had no choice but to answer, everything can't be told to people, I have never lied down here. You must be very good at classical Chinese and literature. Yezhu felt relieved, took the retempered sword, and inadvertently touched the warm jade with his fingertips. In an instant, the warm jade hung in the air, blooming with brilliance. Since he sacrificed his life to destroy Tianzu, Duguzhou, the world's leading demon, is not as beautiful as the cultivators imagined. His meridians were cut off and his spiritual roots were destroyed. An obsessive soul did not dissipate, dragging erect body, looking for the soul scattered by Yezhu in the world. Duguzhou didn't expect to reconnect with Yezhu, he just felt that the way of heaven was unfair, and he wanted to fight for Yezhu's afterlife. The night boat that traveled all over the world but could not be found everywhere, right in front of Duguzhou. The warm jade blossomed because it found its origin, and the remnant soul hidden in the jade pendant disappeared into Yezhu's eyebrows. Yezhu didn't notice the return of the soul, he stared at Nuanyu and asked, What are you doing with this prop? It looks amazing. Props? Duguzhou suppressed his doubts, endured the frantic excitement in his heart, and tried his best to say in a steady voice, the jade that locks the soul, the jade pendant that forcibly locks the soul, is not the right thing. Such a powerful tool? I'm afraid it's not a magic weapon. Where did you get it? He didn't mean to it back, thinking that this person was either generous or an NPC who gave out props. It's just an ordinary spiritual tool. Duguzhou stared at Yezhu's actions, seeing his expression full of curiosity. He was very unfamiliar with the existence of soul-locking jade, and he also said something about his fundamental nature. If you don't understand it, it's obvious that you've been reincarnated long ago and don't remember anything. Forgetting is also good. Duguzhou recalled all the misfortunes in the past, but felt that the past had no value for Yezhu to recall. The only thing he worried about was whether the soul of the night boat in front of him was complete. Duguzhou took a step forward and reached out to Yezhou. Yezhou thought that Duguzhou wanted to get back the soul lock jade, and handed it to Duguzhou obediently. Unexpectedly, the other party didn't look at you at all, but put his fingers on Yezhou's wrist, as if he was checking the pulse. Yezhou became more and more suspicious that Duguzhou was an NPC. There were so many doubts in him that he didn't look like a player born in modern society. However, the experience of being cheated by the game company was too tragic. Ye Zhou did not dare to draw conclusions, and secretly observed Du Guizhou with the idea of examination. Du Guizhou loosened Yehu's wrist and frowned. He was a little bit familiar with the technique of Qigong, and just now he diagnosed Yehu's pulse, and found that there was a big problem with his body. The person looks only 14 or 15 years old, his face is immature, and he is still a young man who has not grown up. Du Guizhou deliberately pressed hard when taking the pulse, but Yehu did not respond, and the pain and touch were far lower than ordinary people. According to the pulse, there should be no such symptoms. What's even weirder is that according to Du Guizhou's inference, Yehu's 3 souls and 7 souls are missing half. According to the pulse, Yehu should be a person who has been lying in a hospital bed for a long time and relying on various drugs to continue his life. Ye Zhou, who was in front of him, looked very healthy. It's like, there is just a body closely related to Yehu, and Yehu himself is not here. If Yehu was not there, how could the remnant soul in the jade pendant be absorbed by him? The feeling of concern overwhelmed the joy of the reunion, which made Du Guizhou's hot head gradually calm down and seriously think about his situation. Du Guizhou's rush into the Kanglin Mountains is not a fool's errand. Other people really can't leave the edge of the human world. It is possible for him to hold the pure and turbid double swords, so this is just outside the Kanglin Mountains, a completely unfamiliar world. Du Guizhou looked at the direction he was coming from. The place that was supposed to be the clouds and mist had turned into a forest. Just now, he just jumped out of the forest and grabbed a few monsters with one move. The life of the beast. Thinking of monsters, Du Guizhou looked down again, and saw that the corpses turned into flying ashes, and a rustling sound suddenly came from the depths of the woods, and the 2 extremely ugly monsters were born travel through the woods. Bad monsters. Ye Zhou hurriedly grabbed a handful of medicinal pills and stuffed them into the import, and at the same time said to Du Guizhou, whether you are an NPC or not, if you rob me of the monsters again, I will definitely make a vendetta. You. Seeing that Ye Zhou, who was spawning monsters, dropped Du Guizhou, who was still unclear, and swung his sword towards a monster. Ye Zhou originally wanted to swing his sword defensively, but unexpectedly, a sword energy swept across, splitting the trees in front of him and the monster hidden behind them in half. The combat special effects of Ninefold Heaven are very well done. The sword energy is a light blue light. With the special effects sound of slashing, there is quite a sharp feeling of a sword cutting through the sky. So powerful! Ye Zhou looked at the sword in his hand incredulously, and swiped at the other monsters at a distance. The monsters that he had tried his best to kill before were all in an instant torn apart. Ye Zhou also got a few spirit stones and herbs. He hasn't learned the trick yet, so he can only bend down to pick up the fallen items one by one, and pat the belt. The items will be collected in the storage belt. This belt was given by the system when the account was established. The capacity is very small. Now it is almost full. Higher grade belts need to be worn at level 10 or above. He is currently at level 9, and a little more with experience, you can reach level 10, and Ye Zhou plans to farm monsters to level up here. When Ye Zhou was fighting, Du Guizhou observed this strange world with full of doubts. No, I'm not unfamiliar, Du Guizhou has seen this forest and monsters. Karma beasts have no sanity, only instinctive malice towards all living beings, and will attack all living beings indiscriminately. The karma forest is planted by the Buddhist sect, but eradicating evil thoughts is the task of the whole right path. There is a karma forest near almost every sect. The sect will regularly issue the task of clearing karma, and the disciples below the foundation stage will receive the task, which can not only improve their skills, but also receive spiritual energy from the sect. Stones or herbs as rewards. Du Guizhou suddenly remembered the sound he heard when he was eradicating monsters. He had a storage jade pendant hanging around his waist. A very poor spirit stone and a few unfamiliar jade slips. He must find out Yehu's physical condition, whether it is related to this strange world. Seeing the young Yesu looking for monsters in the forest of karma, Duguzhou took out a jade slip to investigate with his divine sense. The jade slip is a magic weapon commonly used in the cultivation world to store knowledge. The content that can be recorded is 100 times 1000 times that of books. Duguzhou originally thought that this jade slip should contain the reverse sword art that had been dropped before, but when his divine sense penetrated into the back, he felt that it was wrong, and some words and symbols of unknown meaning were written on it. Name, Duguzhou race, initial human race, later converted to alien race. Stamina, aura, defense value, attack value, blood value, 100/, level, 3/, identity, to be unlocked. Background, to be unlocked. Main quest, to be unlocked on the jade slip. Duguzhou knew every word, but he didn't understand even a single sentence. When he raised the jade slip and frowned, Yezhou had already cleared a wave of monsters, and happily brought his sword to Duguzhou and said, "The weapons you forged are also very useful." This sword was originally just a novice weapon bought by a weapon shop. It is a typical broken copper and iron, and its durability is extremely poor. Take advantage of the clearance gap to sharpen the weapon to increase the durability of the weapon. After forging, the attributes of iron swords have undergone a qualitative leap. In terms of power, it is at least a weapon worn at level 20-30, but it can ignore the level difference, and he can wear it if he is less than level 10, if it can be upgraded to the full level. This is a peerless magic weapon. Duguzhou sent weapons so generously, Yezhou couldn't ask the identity of the other party in a questioning tone. He simply stretched out his hand. "Let's add a friend." Only players can add friends to each other. Adding a friend will know the identity of the other party. If you add a friend, you will be a player, but if you can't add it, you will be a game NPC. And after becoming friends, Yezhou has the opportunity to give his items and money to each other unconditionally. Taking the benefits of Duguzhou for nothing is not enough to say thank you. Yezhou just waited for Duguzhou to nod before sending a friend request. How do you know that Duguzhou bit his index finger when faced with Yezhou's invitation, and squeezed out a drop of blood from his fingertips? Blood is an alliance. This is the way of worshipping in the keyboard era of Zhongtian. Triple, and randomly generate a covenant skill based on the racial attributes of the two. Easily break the covenant. Yezhou just wanted to be a simple friend, but he didn't even think about it and established such a close relationship. But he was the one who proposed to be friends, and he was the one who got the advanced weapon. It seemed a little rude to refuse rashly. This. Yezhou looked at Duguzhou hesitantly, only to see the blood from Duguzhou's fingertips dripping into the grass. Holographic games are no better than keyboard online games, and the sense of reality is too strong, unlike those that can be ruthlessly rejected across the screen. In the end, under the sad eyes of Duguzhou, Yezhou hesitantly bit his fingertips and let his blood merge with Duguzhou's. Ding! You have formed an alliance with Duguzhou. Do you entrust the system to assign character relationships according to each other's attributes? Whether Yezhou said, assign the relationship according to each other's attributes? There was no such prompt before. Is the game revised after the upgrade? After the original blood is an alliance, players regardless of gender are sworn brothers. At this time, it becomes unknown, and it feels like opening a blind box, which is quite interesting. Select yes. Yezhou said to Duguzhou, let's see how the new alliance will be distributed. Duguzhou also received a system prompt, and a yes or no dialogue option popped up in front of him. He quietly obeyed Yezhou's instructions, and the two clicked yes together. 2 rays of light, one black and one white, were released from the blood of the fusion of the two, and the 2 Tai Chi fish circled around them, and finally turned into a jade slip that recorded the relationship between the two. According to the records of jade slips, their relationship is defaulted to master-apprentice relationship by the system. Yezhou is the master, Duguzhou is the apprentice, and the covenant skill is the combination of 2 swords, which requires a level of 80 or above. Use the relationship between master and apprentice. Why is it a relationship between master and apprentice? Yezhou said in shock, now the game is full of low-level novice players, and the apprenticeship system has not been activated at all. How can I be a level 9 player? To be someone else's master. Zhou looked at the word master and apprentice on the jade slip, but felt that this was the best result. Is it because my account is bound to the keyboard 9 heavens? Yezhou guessed, have you bound the keyboard account? You can get a lot of old players returning gift packs. Next. Zhou thought for a while, and learned Yezhou's tone, I don't have an account, and I have never played keyboard. The assignment of master and apprentice may be related to the binding of the keyboard online game account. Yezhou analyzed it carefully. Zhou read out the other party's name through the soul message of blood as an alliance, Yezhou. Similar and different from previous life. Ah! Can I see my real name when I register after forming an alliance? My ID is obviously One Leaf Boat, does the game company leak player privacy? But your name is still Zhou's ID. Yezhou wondered, Zhou doesn't look like the name of an ordinary person in modern society, it's probably a screen name. When Yezhou mentioned games many times, Zhou felt even more wrong, so he answered cautiously, I missed 2 words. So it is, but I accidentally revealed my real name. Yezhou patted his head, a little embarrassed. After forming an alliance, you can check some of each other's attributes. Yezhou can see Zhou's level, race, and other information, but he can't see those hidden attributes that are all question marks. He curiously said, you are really a player, but you are only level 3, and you have not chosen a profession. How did you forge my sword so well? Zhou felt that this world had many similarities with the world of self-cultivation he was familiar with, but also a little different. He thought about it and said, it is true that the human race can only make alchemy or refining tools after the foundation period, but different races. Oh, the alien race is indeed a new race after the revision. Yezhou said, you may not know if you haven't played the keyboard. In the original game, only NPCs and bosses can have alien races. After the revision, the alien race was added. However, there is no way to directly select the alien race when building the account. The game company explained that the player who encountered the opportunity in the game has the opportunity to transform into the alien race. Did you have any adventures to change the race? I got a sword, and I don't belong to the human race. Zhou said. It's the broken sword in your package. You're lucky. After you become an alien, is there any change? Does the ability of blood to strengthen weapons also have something to do with this prop? Yezhou weighed the iron sword and sighed, no, this is not luck at all. If other players know the effect of your blood, will they chase and chop you to take blood to strengthen the weapon? Is the game company so pitiful? After finally transforming it into a special race, it will end up worse than the monster race and the spirit race. He imagined that scene, is it not going to bleed into a river? After being recognized as a master by the system, Yezhou felt a sense of responsibility inexplicably, and the change of identity made him feel obliged to plan for his apprentice. Is this a passive skill or an active skill? Yezhou asked. Zhou roughly understood what he wanted to ask, and answered succinctly, passive. Yezhou looked sad, passive is troublesome. If it is the keyboard era, everyone's level is very high, and there is no shortage of full-level artifacts and refining gems in the game. Players can buy equipment with money. Well, there is no need to hunt down an ordinary player. But now, the holographic game has just been tested, and the highest level on the leaderboard is only level 20. Weapons above level 10 are considered magic weapons, and the game does not have an open reality and game currency exchange system. You're a walking treasure with upgraded weapons. The apprentice is only level 3, players, how can you upgrade? Before you are at a high level, try not to conflict with players, find places with few people to spawn monsters, and don't let people discover your passive skills. Yezhou thought hard, and only thought of such a solution method. Most of Yezhou's words Zhou didn't understand, he remembered every word Yejo said after the reunion, thought for a moment, and asked a question that was the safest and easiest to obtain information: is there any difference between keyboard age and holographic game? Can you tell me the characteristics of keyboard age? Yejo said, the difference is huge, the holographic reality is too strong. The keyboard game has to be played in front of the computer. After a long time, it hurts the back and hurts the eyes. My parents have long been banned from playing on the computer. The holographic helmet can be played in bed, and they'll let me play, but there's a time limit per day. Reality? The opposite of truth is falsehood. Games, falsehoods, helmets, in bed. There are still many changes in the game, too many, it is difficult to explain them all. I will talk about one in the future. Yejo said seriously and responsibly, for example, someone like you forging skills, the keyboard era can never be a passive skill. There is no such a clear sense of bleeding on the screen. Passive skills are difficult to achieve, but in a fully simulated game, the server does not know how many times it has been upgraded to achieve this. After speaking, Yejo couldn't help but poke Dugazwo's long hair. The thick black hair looked very silky. Yejo regretted, why is the pain reduced and the touch also reduced? I will post comments on the official website when I go offline. By the way, in the keyboard era, you can switch the game interface and hang up while watching the drama and browse the forum. Holographic is not enough. At present, the helmet does not have the function of downloading other apps, and you cannot log into the browser and various videos. Software. Hearing this, Dugazwo already had a general impression of the world in front of him. This is not a real world, but more like the mysterious realm of the sword sect. The disciples from the Dan period and below are practicing swordsmanship. Suingsujing is a fairy formation passed down from generation to generation by Qingtian sword sect. After the disciples entered the Suingsujing, their bodies fell into a deep sleep, and their spiritual consciousness came to a mysterious realm formed by a formation. The disciples can let go in the secret realm. You can learn from your peers, and you can also fight against fake monsters, where you can truly feel the power of the sword. The biggest advantage of the Suingsu realm is that in addition to depleting some spiritual power, the body of the disciples will not be injured, and they can let go of practicing swords. This place is more complicated than mysterious void realm. Yejo's true body should be far away from another place he can't touch. What is he? In order to confirm his identity, Dugazwo said to Yesu like a small talk, it's really true, you can't even tell whether I'm a player or an NPC. You don't know how many times I've been tricked today. Yejo shook his head and sighed, and you speak eloquently. If you didn't claim to have a secondary illness, I really thought you were an NPC. Say you don't rob monsters in the future, this kind of behavior. Although the monsters have their own abilities, you can easily be beaten like this. Dugazwo followed his words, I wasn't sure if you were an NPC at that time. I speak so modern, how can I look like an NPC? Yejo said unconvinced. Dugazwo has already roughly understood what NPC is, similar to the monsters in the mysterious realm or the fantasy realm, all of which are false and unreal, and cannot be turned into entities to appear in the world. And he may really be an NPC. Farming monsters again. Yejo said, I only have less than half an hour left to go online today, so I have to quickly reach level 10. Let's form a team to share experience. Your level is too low, there are no good weapons, let's watch it first, Master will give you experience. After Yejo finished speaking, he jumped up on the treetops, ready to ambush a little monster. Upgrade? Dugazwo's thoughts moved, and his divine sense penetrated into the jade slip that had just recorded his personal information. Seeing that there was a progress bar next to level 3, there was also an option to upgrade. After the upgrade, Dugazwo vaguely felt that his body had undergone very weak changes. A warm current appeared in the broken dantian, and the pain in the meridians was slightly relieved. It seems that the upgrade will allow his body to slowly recover. This is a good thing, no matter what world, strength is very important. In the past, Dugu Zhou's heart was ashes, and he didn't put life and death in his heart. At this moment, he finally found Ye Zhou, but he gave birth to some fighting spirit. Ye Zhou's soul is incomplete, and he still needs to find the scattered remnants, so he must strengthen his strength as soon as possible. At this time, Ye Zhou on the other side had quickly eliminated 2 mobs. When the mobs fell to the ground, Dugu Zhou heard the voice of Ding, "You kill demons, and gain 100 experience." It was the apprentice who received the quest reward from the teacher. I was taken care of by Ye Zhou again, both in the past and present. Dugu Zhou smiled nostalgically, watching the experience progress bar in the jade slip keep growing. He actually doesn't know these symbols that symbolize numbers. First, Ye Zhou said his level, so that Dugu Zhou remembered that 3 is 3, and when he upgraded, he knew 4 and 4 5. With Ye Zhou plus 100 to kill monsters, Dugu Zhou quickly memorized the characters 19, and also understood the meaning of 0, 1 more 0 is 10 times. After he could read numbers, he realized that as the level increased, the experience required was also increasing. He used 200 experience to upgrade from level 3 to level 4, and from level 4 to level 5 is 400, 1000 is needed from level 5 to level 6. According to this growth rate, to reach level 80 where they can use the fusion skills, isn't the experience required an extremely terrifying number? The monsters in the Karma Forest were not enough. Dugu Zhou looked at the monsters on the ground with some anxiety. Upgrading weapons greatly improved Ye Zhou's efficiency, and he quickly cleared 2 rounds of monsters. He landed in front of Dugu Zhou and let out a long breath, finally unlocked the group attack skill at level 10, but the upgrade has also become 4000, the mobs here are not enough, we will go to other maps tomorrow. Well, I hope there will be fewer players on the next map. When I first started doing quests in Novice Village, there were more players than quests. Other players? And a lot? Dugu Zhou, there are only 2 of us players here. Because it's hard to find here, Ye Zhou said proudly, I took a quest to buy incense at Tanyi Temple in Xingxing Village, and I saw players grabbing incense in front of the door. I didn't want to squeeze with them, so I went for a walk in the bamboo forest with few people, and accidentally touched a purple bamboo, which was teleported here. How did you get in? Same as you. Dugu Zhou said. It's time for me to go offline, Ye Zhou said, my family is very strict with game time, and I can't be online for too long every day. Why don't you stay here and upgrade to level 10? Find other maps, and I will go online to find you tomorrow. Going? Dugu Zhou looked at Ye Zhou reluctantly, and he only saw Ye Zhou for a moment. He doesn't want to be separated from Ye Zhou emotionally, but intellectually he knows that this is not the real world. Ye Zhou must return to reality. Even if it is the sword sect of Qingtian, it is impossible for the disciple to stay in Suingsu territory for too long, and the body without spiritual sense will gradually dry up. 1,000 reluctance finally turned into a sentence, what time tomorrow, how can I find you? The flow rate of game time and real time seems to be the same, Ye Zhou said, I go online at about 9 am, go offline at 12 o'clock, 3 pm to 6 pm, and can't be online at night. Seeing Dugu Zhou's ignorant look about the game, Ye Zhou asked worriedly, if you encounter a player, try not to have a dispute, if you really can't, you will be forced to go offline, and you must not expose that with special skills. Those players who are desperate to upgrade can you dry with one knife. You can upgrade step by step, and I will send you a paper crane voice transmission when I go online tomorrow. All that said, Dugu Zhou could only say, okay, I'll wait for you. Ye Zhou took out the jade slip representing the control panel, popped the button to log off, looked at Dugu Zhou standing in the woods before leaving, and finally summoned up the courage to ask, that, you are realistic, does it really look like this? The face value is adjusted to 80% and can still be like this, so. Dugu Zhou subconsciously touched his face, he knew that his face was very attractive. Although Yesu did not praise him for his good looks in his previous life, Duguzhou knew that Yesu cared about his face very much. There was a big competition between the divisions and the division. He fought with the same school, leaving several bloodstains on his face, and also suffered internal injuries. After the war, Yesu threw a few bottles of medicinal pills to treat trauma, but Duguzhou himself went to the deacon hall to collect the medicinal pills for internal injuries. It's worse. Duguzhou showed a nostalgic smile. Yezhou covered his heart and went offline. This is a little worse. He has no way to communicate with Duguzhou for the time being. He is angry and jealous. Seeing people disappear out of thin air, Duguzhou's smile solidifies, joy fades, leaving only loneliness and confusion in a strange world. Duguzhou stood in the karma forest. The corpse of the little monster disappeared under his feet, and the sound of rustling came again from the forest. In Yezhou's words, the mobs are refreshed. Ugly monsters emerge from the forest, and they will respawn soon after they are killed. Just like the karma forest that Duguzhou is familiar with, there will always be countless monsters born from malice. The monster will attack the player instinctively, and Duguzhou is soon surrounded by mobs. The 10th level of the game is considered the entry-level chi refining period. Duguzhou's current level is not even as high as that of ordinary outer disciples. However, cultivators comprehend the way of heaven and inspire the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and they can often move hundreds of thousands with one move. He used to be the Quasi god who set foot on the Tianzu, driving the power of the 9 heavens to sever the Tianzu. No one knows how to communicate with the heavens and the earth better than him. Here, the world is full of spiritual energy. Duguzhou mobilized the few real essences in his body and used sword tactics. The aura of heaven and earth in the karmic barrier forest was attracted by Duguzhou, condensed around him, and used it for him. Hey! There's a teleportation array here. Ah, there's a group of mobs over there. 2 players suddenly appeared in the karma forest not far away, apparently the same as Yezhou, who discovered the secret of the bamboo forest in Tanyi Temple. After they approached, they found a person standing in the middle of a group of monsters. Countless bamboo leaves flew out like blades, and dozens of monsters surrounding him were instantly shot through by the bamboo leaves and fell heavily to the ground. The man's hair bun was cut by a bamboo leaf. The man in black standing in the corpse of the monster turned his body and looked at the 2 players coldly. His eyes were full of killing intent. The 2 players made a decisive decision, took out an acceleration sign, turned around and ran, and while running, they used a paper crane to send a message to their teammates, "Help! There is a beautiful one in the bamboo forest of Tanyi Temple." Unlike people, at least bosses above level 50. Duguzhou was just a small test of his skills. To see how much his injury and skill had recovered, he performed the 5 elements sword art that all beginner disciples of the Qingtian sword sect must practice. There are 5 realms of swordsmanship, namely ordinary swords, imperial swords, all swords, no swords, and no self. And if a sword cultivator is extremely talented, he may even reach the state of no sword if he has just entered the Dao. First, cast swords from the 5 elements of the mortal world, and practice the golden sword, wooden sword, earth sword, water sword, and fire sword to the extreme. The first stage is to be controlled by the sword, exerting the different powers of the 5 elements sword, which is the ordinary sword. The second stage is to abandon the 5 elements, choose a suitable spiritual sword, use the sword to control the person, make it dormant, and become the sword master, which is to control the sword. The third stage is to get rid of the visible sword, cultivate the invisible sword, and the 5 elements of heaven and earth. The 5 elements sword art is extremely cultivated, but it is only the realm of all swords. Duguzhou just used the all swords realm in 5 elements sword art. He did not hold a sword, but everything around him could be a sword. He used the fallen leaves in the bamboo forest as his sword and slaughtered all the beasts of karma with a single move of 10,000 swords returned to the sect. This trick is very high, but the skill is not high. Duguzhou used a mere 7th level real essence to motivate high-level tricks. The real Yuan was weak in the follow-up, and its power was not large, and it was just bluffing. This momentum fell in the eyes of two players who had contacted the keyboard 9 heaven. No matter how they looked at it, it seemed like a trick that can only be mastered by level 50 or above. Now the player with the highest ranking in the entire game is only level 15. It is said that he is trying to climb a mountain to become a teacher, and his sect has not yet been selected. How can he display such a powerful skill? The two players thought that they had accidentally opened a level 50 map. The difference in strength was too great, and they obviously couldn't fight, so they turned around and ran in fright. In normal online games, whether it is a keyboard online game or a holographic online game, it is impossible for players to hear voice transmission dialogues of different frequencies. But Dugu Zhou not only saw the two, but also heard their voice transmission. The two saw his face and misunderstood what level 50 boss he was. Dugu Zhou didn't understand the meaning of the word, but instinctively felt that they couldn't let them escape like this. Seeing that the two players were about to flee to the teleportation formation, Dugu Zhou tapped his toes, and a force of energy shot out and turned into a wind sword, severing two green bamboos one after another, and the huge bamboo branches fell down, blocking the way of the two players. Is this also blocking the player with a destructive environment? New gameplay! The two players exclaimed. Dugu Zhou shuttled between the bamboo forests. A few ups and downs came to the two of them, stood on the bamboo branch that the wind sword fell down, and looked down at the two of them condescendingly. Dugu Zhou swept across the faces of the two of them, and saw that there was no fright on their faces, only surprises, apparently not afraid of him, but had the urge to try. Yes, this is the mysterious realm, and the player will not really die. In the past, if he encountered a powerful monster in the Suangsu realm, he would not be afraid, but rather wanted to challenge it. The genders of the two-player game accounts are a man and a woman, and they hold a paper fan and a whip. Being killed by a boss over level 50 is not ashamed, it's just a new game. Seeing that the two are not afraid of themselves, Dugu Zhou's expression softened, he fell from the bamboo branch, and slowly said, "You misunderstood, I am also a player." Liar to ghosts! Where did the player come from such terrible tricks? The male player threw a paper fan at Dugu Zhou, and the moment the fan was thrown, it turned into a steel frame, and each fan blade was throat-sealing blade. Dugu Zhou flashed sideways slightly and heard the female player say, "That is, how can a normal player look like you, unless you send me a photo of yourself?" Photo, from the context, seems to be something like a portrait, Dugu Zhou said. Photos can't be posted. Why do you want his photo? It may be from No, NPC won't post photos. Why did you make me crooked? What do you think? Said the male player. The female player threw the whip symbolically and was reluctant to attack Dugu Zhou. She embarrassedly said, "I'm not trying, what if?" Dugu Zhou was just about to say something when he suddenly noticed a strong wind blowing behind him. Fan. The dodging effect is really good, and I can even pick up the blade with bare hands. After the game is upgraded, the experience is very good. It would be nice to be able to broadcast live. With such a good picture, there must be many people buying helmets to play games. As he was talking, he saw the boss in front of him close the paper fan, and a dexterous jump came to him. At such a close distance, male players thought they were going to be killed in seconds. Who knew that boss had no intention of attacking? He held a paper fan on the player's shoulder, and threw the paper fan into the male player's arms, and said casually, "Believe it or not." "Believe, I believe." The female player said, "If you were the boss, we would have died long ago." The male player also put away the paper fan and said, "Why do you have such powerful tricks first?" Dugu Zhou recalled what Yezhou said before and replied, "One-time props. Have you used such a powerful item at once? Just try." Dugu Zhou said simply. Dugu Zhou's purpose is very simple, as long as the two players regard him as a player, he said to the two, the monsters here are suitable for players below level 10 to level up. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left to see the world outside the Karma Forest. At this time, he heard the female player say, "Handsome guy, add a friend." A void dialog box appeared in front of Duguzhou, which read, "Player King Yulove requested to add you as a friend, did you pass?" Whether so, this is what Yezhou meant by adding friends, not blood fusion. Duguzhou reunited with Yezhou before, for fear of not seeing each other again. In order to establish the closest relationship with Yezhou for the first time, he chose blood fusion as the contract. After the blood was melted, he could sense Yezhou's position at any time. No matter where Yezhou was, he could find him. But after Yezhou went offline, the induction of blood fusion was completely broken, and he could not find Yezhou in this world. Duguzhou cannot be satisfied with the encounter in the mysterious world, he must understand the real world where Yezhou lives, and the two people in front of him can just be used to check the news. Duguzhou taps yes, and receives a system prompt, "You have passed King Yulove's friend application, and the current friendliness is 1 of." Duguzhou saw that the opposite player was called King Yulove, no martial art, level 11, 1 level higher than Yezhou. Seeing that a teammate has added Duguzhou as a friend, the male player is not to be outdone and sends a friend request. Duguzhou passed as usual, the male player is called Long at Aotian, no sect, level 11. The names of these two people are like a joke. The characters love, at and ridiculous words that they can't understand are obviously not their real names, but their nicknames in the game. Wow, your name without a symbol doesn't have the same name as someone else. Long at Aotian envied, my Long Aotian changed several symbols before the registration was successful. Isn't that your name has a high coincidence rate? King Yu said in love, it's too earthy. Is yours not local? It's 2020, and English is still added to the name. Long at Aotian is not to be outdone. Duguzhou used the experience gained from killing monsters to raise his level to level 9 while listening to the quarrel between the two to obtain information. But after the upgrade, his true essence immediately filled up, and the bun that was split by the bamboo leaves returned to normal. It seems that the upgrade has the function of restoring the state, which is somewhat similar to the appearance of the cultivator when he breaks through the realm. Duguzhou used his known knowledge to understand the new world little by little. Long at Aotian was noisy, but King Yulove, he simply didn't reply. He changed the subject and said to Duguzhou, "You're really not a boss if you can add friends, but brother, you really didn't pay for its skin." Duguzhou only regarded the skin as something like a disguise technique, a face-retaining technique, a human skin mask, etc. He shook his head and said, "The game has not yet opened currency exchange." This is what Yezhou told him before. "Oh, yes." Long at Aotian snorted, "What's the use of being handsome, it's only level 9. My one-time props have been used, and the experience gained by the monsters here is not enough. I plan to go out to do the task, how about you?" Duguzhou said in the tone of the two. Yezhou is only level 10, Duguzhou does not plan to level up again, rather than staying in the forest of karma, it is better to go outside to find out. This game world is always inextricably linked with his original world. Duguzhou wants to adapt to the new world, and also wants to find out the relationship between the two worlds, and wants to know who he and Yezhou are, how to get here. "King Yulove, I will do the task with you." Long at Aotian, we're going to see the new map. The content of what they said was completely opposite, obviously they disagreed, and they started to pinch again. Duguzhou only regards them as a tool to obtain information, and does not intend to wait for them to quarrel to come to a conclusion. Politely, "You two will discuss slowly." After saying that, he came to the teleportation array and teleported to Tanyi Temple. When teleporting, there is a feeling of time and space changing, and the scene in front of you has also undergone a huge change, from a green bamboo forest to a temple where people come and go. The temple is originally a clean place, but it is like a vegetable market, full of people. Hey, hey! Did you see so many people queuing up for the incense at the front? Do you have any quality in the back? Isn't the game helmet very expensive? Why are there so many people in the public beta? It used to look crowded when playing online games, but now it's really crowded. Why should I increase the touch? Whoever stepped on my feet, it hurts. This is the queuing up for the incense quest. Master, I will complete the task of releasing the life. Amitabha, donor, this cat is not eligible for release. Why not? The burial flowers next door are considered to be released, so what can I do? Don't use the demon clan to deceive the old man, Gan. The golden body of the Arhat, the demon appears. A golden light flashed, and the black cat in the player's arms for the release mission fell to the ground, and the monk before the release was still kind. The black cat's body was stiff, laying on the spot for a while and resurrecting, stretched out its paws and scratched the release player, and said, "Let you use me to test the release mission, I will say it doesn't work. Isn't this a try?" The player released the life and fled. How do I know that this old man looks thin, and the demon is so ruthless? It must be at least level 40. And you only have level 1, even if you die, there's no harm in trying. Let you try, let you try. I'll cancel my account and re-register my personal family. The black cat licked his paws. Don't, the black cat is so cute, it's a species that I finally found randomly. Look at the mushroom next door, it's so hard to keep doing the task. Free Clinic Stall Road. Black cat, do you have any common sense? That's Ganoderma lucidum. In front of the free clinic booth that the player refers to, a kind-hearted old monk is giving free treatment to the poor people. There is a Ganoderma lucidum on the table where the old monk diagnoses the pulse. Every time the old monk diagnoses a disease, he puts his hands together and says to Ganoderma lucidum, "Saving one life is better than building a 7-level pagoda." The benefactor is merciful and merciful. Giving up your life to save people will surely be rewarded. He took a ray of spiritual energy from Lingzi and injected it into the eyebrows of the sick people, and the sick people were immediately cured. Ganoderma swayed her body and said weakly, "Don't thank me, please give me more experience, I can become a human when I reach level 20, woo woo woo, spiritual life is too much. Suffering." A player next to him pointed at Lingzi, "This is the number 1 player on the leaderboard. The spiritual level is really fast. Just sacrifice yourself to save people." Wow! He saves one person and can be upgraded to level 1, which will soon be level 20. It's impossible for him to keep on saving lives, there must be a limit to the number of times. As the player said, when Lingzi reached level 16, the old monk picked up Lingzi and said, "Donor, your task today has reached the limit, and continuing to treat will endanger your life. Please come back tomorrow." The old monk put Ganoderma lucidum on the ground, and took out a snow lotus from the bamboo basket beside his feet, and said to the snow lotus with kindness, "Saving one life is better than building a 7-level pagoda. Save people, there will be blessings." Shuelian waved her leaves, "Please hurry up. Dao Guzhou. What a lively and harmonious world." Some good players gathered around the old monk and peeked at the bamboo basket under his feet to see if the monk had all the Eldar players in the beta period. "Don't look," said Lingzi, who had just completed today's task, "when I was in the basket just now, I thought I was the only one, who knows where he took out another one." Speaking of which, there were also a pair of eyes that looked a bit like a Q map on the Ganoderma lucidum, and jealously glanced at the snow lotus on the table. Not only was it not scary, but also had a kind of cuteness. The player reluctantly leaned over to take a look. Sure enough, there was nothing in the bamboo basket, but after Shuelian completed the task, the old monk would definitely take out another spirit race player. The Terran players who couldn't squeeze into the Shangxiang team gathered around Lingzi to inquire about the news. "Your level is so high, but will you continue to save people and upgrade like this in the future?" "How is it possible?" Lingzi rolled his eyes. "After level 20, if you have a humanoid, you can probably do quests to upgrade. There are so few spirits, and there is only one old monk to give tasks, so everyone's leveling up is too slow. Some players asked, there is still a queue for incense here. In the past, keyboard games were played online. It's not that troublesome. The keyboard era has been upgraded. Players can only see the dialog boxes of themselves and the NPC. As long as the server has enough capacity, many players can complete the task together without queuing at all. Another player replied, it's only a public beta now, and the difficulty of upgrading is of course high. This game adjusts the appearance according to the level, that is to hang the player with the level. If it is too easy to level up, the player will soon be I'm not interested. How can game companies make money? Someone asked the monk in front of the door, Master, if there are too many people in Tanyi Temple, what should your temple do? Zhaik replied according to the game program, 1 flower, 1 world, 1 leaf, 1 bodhi. In the eyes of the donor there is only one temple of altar industry, but there are altar karma everywhere in the world, where my way is, it's Galan. What do you mean? I don't understand, who will translate it into vernacular? The players asked. Duguzhou, who was watching secretly among the players, said, 3,000 worlds, as many players as there are as many Tanyi temples. Players have a little understanding, it means that when the number of players reaches a certain value, the game company will naturally provide a quick upgrade and skip the line service. Duguzhou listened carefully to everyone's words and quickly absorbed analytical knowledge. He glanced at Lingzi from the corner of his eye, and saw a group of players piled up around Lingzi. King Yulov and Long at Aotian who met in the Karma Forest also came out at some time, and they were approaching Lingzi to ask players who top the leaderboard level up their experience. Can you move? A player poked the thick cap of Ganodermalucidum. Then are you a man or a woman? The player still poked at Lingzi. The voices of the Spirit Clan and the Demon Clan are both clear and crisp childish voices, and it is impossible to distinguish between males and females. After level 20, you can choose your own gender. Lingzi moved her body hard to avoid low-handed players. It was really difficult to move. How did you climb up to Tanyi Temple and be used as medicinal herbs by the old monk? The player was still poking around, so angry that Lingzi was screaming. At this time, a warrior monk in a dark yellow robe came to Lingzi. One side of the robe sleeve was tied around his waist, revealing his strong arms and well-developed pectoral muscles. His bare hands held holding a Zen staff, the other palm stood in front of his chest, and he recited the Buddha's name. He said politely, this benefactor, this spirit race has saved countless lives, please don't hurt him. Ganodermalucidum moved its body with difficulty and leaned into the foot of the monk. The cheap player knew something was wrong, but he always wanted to kill himself, so he pinched his waist and said to the monk, what if I just touched it? Donor, the poor monk is offended. The monk held the Zen staff in both hands, and the Zen staff danced in the air, Gan. Not angry King Kong. With a Zen stick, the lowly player was smashed until only one piece of equipment remained, and disappeared without a trace. Players are invincible to molest spirit players. It violates the game's regulations not to sexually harass players, and restrict them from doing tasks related to Tanyi Temple within 7 days. Full service announcement. After saying the rules, the monk returned to his benevolent look and said, Amitabha. Everyone. The monks in this Tanyi Temple are toughest. Anyone who knows the player who is the most cheap but invincible, contacted him and came back and told the audience, it's so cruel, a Zen stick has made a person from level 12 to level 9, and dropped 3 levels in a row. It seems that the game is very strict in terms of sexual harassment, and the punishment is extremely high. That's for sure. King Yulov, who followed Duguzhou out, did not know when to join the crowd. When the game is played at a high level, everyone must be handsome and beautiful, and some people are really crooked. What should I do? A holographic online game that spends a lot of money to upgrade will be miserable if it is banned because of some people's bad behavior. Another female player said, that is, behavior below the neck is not allowed. If you want to change clothes, you can only choose one click to change clothes. During the period of traditional keyboard and online games, the characters were exposed one by one, and the clothing material was also very thin. After upgrading to a holographic online game, both men's and women's clothing are covered tightly. Even so, intuitive contact with handsome men and women is better than watching dummies across the screen. Players still spend a lot of money to buy game helmets to experience holographic games. King You Love sighed, I originally came here for the handsome little brother Xiangxia in the promotional video, but who would have spent so much money on game helmets? But what I saw was a bunch of crooked melons and cracked dates. Low-level players are not as good looking as ordinary NPCs, and there are many handsome monks in Tanyi Temple. There are several girls standing beside the Zen staff monk. The sword-brow and starried monk closes his eyes and says color is emptiness's color. He is surrounded by a layer of white light, players can't get close. This means that NPCs can't tease. The intention of the game company is obvious, we are a healthy, green, and environmentally friendly game. At this time, someone was surprised, there is a unique temperament suddenly appeared in the NPCs queuing for treatment, is it a hidden task? King You Love is a face control, she came to play this game to get close contact with the 3D paper people. When she heard the good temperament, her eyes immediately shifted from the monk to the free clinic booth. I saw Tugujo stood out among a group of grey NPCs. That's not an NPC, that's a player. King You Love explained. Unfortunately, no one listened to her words, and the players rushed to the free clinic booth. If it is a keyboard, you can click the mouse to talk, but here is a hologram, and it is not allowed to molest NPCs. Players can only talk to Duguzo. There are not many NPCs in front of the free clinic booth. The number of NPCs has always been kept at 5. After one person is cured, new NPCs will line up at the end. Tugujo stood at the end of the team and became the 6th, but there was no NPC to stop him. As if he hadn't heard the players, he focused on waiting for his turn. What happened in Fengkai Tanyi Temple? Tugujo had a panoramic view, and the players' attempts made him discover several rules. First, it is difficult for the player to distinguish whether the other party is an NPC or a player, but the NPC can. Second, disrupting the NPC mission and deliberately handing in the wrong item will be punished by the NPC, such as the Black Cat. Thirdly, he can avoid the attack of the monks of Tanyi Temple. The monk made 2 shots. Tugujo could see clearly that the power of the monk's move was not fixed, but could be adjusted according to the player's level and the severity of the rules violated by the player. The level of the player who pokes Lingzi is different from that of the Black Cat, and the strength of the monk's shot is completely different. Tugujo secretly estimated that the monk's attack power and speed should be more than 50% of the player's maximum level. For Tugujo, 70% is enough to take risks. The column of his identity is still to be unlocked. Yejo regards him as a player, and his identity is not unlocked. King Yu and Aotian regard him as a boss, and his identity is still not unlocked. As an NPC, his identity is still not unlocked. Tugujo wants to know who he is, and it is impossible to unlock it by player guessing. In this case, it is better to try NPC. The old monk is the role of the free clinic for the NPC. Tugujo was seriously injured and meets the conditions for the free clinic. If he is an NPC, he will be treated. Tugujo observed the old monk's movements, imagined several attack directions, and simulated escape routes in his mind. He was a little nervous in his heart, but his face was calm. The player can be resurrected after death, but he may not. This attempt is risky, but Tugujo doesn't want to back down. He feels that since he has set foot on the road of immortality, he wants to compete with the sky. Yesu saw the fate that Tugujo was going to bear, and kept pushing Tugujo away from the abyss of fate, but after all, he failed to stop Tugujo from killing his father and taking the sword. When his biological father Duguyu died in front of him, Duguju realized that his life was all arranged. He was like a chess piece, his parents, friends, teachers, and even his love for Yesu, it's all doomed from the moment of birth. He is the sword master of the Xianjian chosen by heaven. He must bear all the sins of the world and cut off all feelings with his own hands before he can bear this sword. But why? How could the gods in the heavenly palace control his life so indifferently, just to make him the scabbard of a sword? Duguju never obeyed the destiny, even in a new world. It is true that he is most likely just an NPC designed in the game. In the words of the players, the NPC runs according to the program in the server, exactly the same as him in the Optimus Sword faction. He will not accept fate. Finally, he was in line. Duguju sat in front of the free clinic booth, stretched out his wrist, and asked the old monk to take his pulse. King Yulove came to Duguju and sent him a private chat. Come down, the old monk finds out that you are a player who came to join in the fun, and you will be beaten like those two troublemakers. It's dead. In Duguju's ears, this private chat is a voice transmission, the voice is locked with real essence and sent into the other party's ear, and the voice will not leak to others. This trick Duguju can also, so he sent a private chat to King Yulove. I'm injured, try the rules of the game. Wow, you are so smart. King Yulove didn't chat privately this time, but said publicly, injure yourself first, and then queue up at the free clinic, maybe this place can become a player for healing. The place? Really? Swalian, who was a tonic herb on the stall, was also interested. Does this mean that our spiritual race can do support and treatment in the future, and also revive teammates? Possible. A group of players echoed. Everyone focused on Duguju, some firmly believed that he was a special NPC, and some believed that he was a player. The old monk slowly stretched out his hand and put it on Duguju's pulse. Donor, you. The old monk's amiable eyes suddenly sharpened, he clasped Duguju's vein door with one hand, and tapped the table with the other hand, and the overwhelming real energy enveloped Duguju. This is. According to the attributes of Zhen Yuan, Duguju noticed what the old monk was going to do. He could obviously throw off the opponent and escape, but he just endured it and let the old monk's true essence trap him in it. The surrounding noises instantly quieted down, the players were all stuck, and only Duguju and the old monk were active in the entire space. Phaseless realm, this is the most profound realm of Buddhist cultivation. You can open up a small world of your own with true essence. The small world is independent of the world, and the time and space outside will not pass. This is just a game, how can there be no phase boundary suddenly? Duguju Zheng was in doubt when he heard the old monk say, Mr. Dugu, your poor monk can't cure you. What are you talking about? Duguju said calmly, aren't you an NPC? Why NPC? The old monk put his palms together, the poor monk Tanji. Master Tanji? Duguju remembers that Master Tanji is the most virtuous and respected Buddhist practitioner in the realm of cultivation. How can such a master appear in online games? Mr. Dugu used his body as a guide. With the help of the Sword of Creation, he destroyed the cornerstone of the last 3 days, and was injured only by the second Suansu sword and the backlash of the gods. Master Tanji said, but Mr. Dugu has given countless lives a ray of life for the next 3 days, and has added countless merits to his body. He is slowly treating your meridians, and one day it will be cured. How can I have merit? Duguju asked. What Mr. Dugu did, the evil is in the heaven, and the merit is in the future. The old monk said. What else did Duguju want to ask? At this time, the people around moved, and the original Master Tanji, who had a smart eye, also turned into a dumb old monk. He said to Duguju, this player, please don't affect the common people's treatment, players can go to the pharmacy in the next town for diagnosis and treatment, and players below level 20 will not consume spirit stones. He ignored King Yulove, but used his divine sense to check the personal information on the jade slip, only to see that the identity column had been unlocked. Name, Zhou identity, bug. It was raining on the other side of the Kanglan Mountains, and there were 2 monks sheltering from the rain in a dilapidated temple. The elderly monk meditated cross-legged and snored for a while. Another young monk. What kind of person is Master Tanji, the eminent monk of the 9th reincarnation, the Buddhist monk who was born with the power of the Mahayana period, has long since gotten rid of the mortal body of the body? How can he sleep and snore when he sleeps? Master! The young monk called softly. Master Tanji slowly opened his eyes, rubbed his sleepy eyes, and asked his disciple doubtfully, Master seems to be asleep. Not only fell asleep, but also snored. The young monk said frankly. He was just shaved. He was the youngest disciple of Master Tanji. Master Tanji didn't care about the straightness of the disciple, holding a string of Buddha beads, rolled it a few times and said, I had a dream for the master. But precognitive dreams? Said the young monk. No, Master Tanji shook his head. For the master, he dreamed that he went up the mountain to collect medicine, brought back many untransformed spiritual practices, and set up a free clinic booth in front of a small temple, using the spiritual energy of spiritual practice to help the toiling people heal, and also help the spiritual practice to accumulate merit and transform into a form. No spiritual practice is willing to do this. The young monk said. Master Tanji did not answer. He looked at the appearance of his little apprentice, and suddenly said, Go pick up a wooden stick about the same height as a Zen staff, then take off one sleeve and tie it around your waist. The young monk was confused, but he did as Master Tanji ordered. The young monk was standing in front of Master Tanji with a stick as tall as one person, not like a monk. Master Tanji nodded with satisfaction. This is rather like. Like what? The young monk touched his bald head, wondering what happened to Master. Master Tanji did not answer, but looked at the drizzle outside the temple and said, Today is different from the past. Since the Tianzu collapsed, the Zhuzhongtian merged into one, the last 3 days that originally condensed 80% of the world's spiritual energy. Destroyed once. The spiritual energy is returned to the world, and even this spring drizzle contains unimaginable spiritual energy. Yes. The young monk nodded. Spiritual races are indeed naturally raised, but they are easily targeted by other races before they become enlightened, and they often become medicinal materials for alchemy by others before they transform. Occasionally, those who practice cultivation will owe a lot of cause and effect, and they will use the rest of their lives to repay. After the collapse of the Tianzu, Master Tanji has been thinking about what to do in the world and how to prevent the world with excess spiritual energy from becoming an ancient battlefield again, so that the people are not living. The dream just now provided a new idea for Master Tanji. Check and balance. Master Tanji said. He walked out of the temple in the rain, looked up at the plaque of the broken temple. The spring rain washed away the dust on the plaque, revealing the 3 words Tanyi Temple. Master Tanji looked at the 3 words, recalled the dream just now, and said to the disciple after a long time, You and I will place an order here, open a free clinic for the master, and you will be there beside the teacher, maintain the order of all ethnic groups. Pending order? Here. The young monk pointed to the broken temple road that was empty and leaking. It is here. After the rain stops, you can repair the temple with the teacher. Master Tanji winked at the disciple. After all, we are all NPC. Hey! The young disciple was confused. In the holographic online game Zhuzhongtian, Zhou looked at the bug 3 ghost symbols and said nothing. King Yulov said to Long at Aotian, Did you think you got stuck just now? It seems to be stuck, Long at Aotian also said, but the time has not changed. Is it an illusion? The game server is still not stable. After all, it is still in the public beta period, and there may be bugs. King Yulov guessed. Zhou put away the jade slip, and his eyes fell on the 2 players behind him. He didn't want to be too involved with players other than Yezhou. Now it seems that these 2 are still somewhat useful. He came to the door of Tanyi Temple, picked up a branch, painted a gourd on the ground, and wrote a crooked bug. King Ulov, who was inseparable one step, read, bug? Why are you writing this? Bug? That's what they just said. I felt time stopped just now. Duguzhou said without a trace. Long at Aotndao, it seems that everyone feels that it is really stuck, and the holographic game can still be stuck? When I go offline, I will ask customer service for feedback, and suggest that they fix this bug as soon as possible. When he said this, Duguzhou had some understanding of the word bug. In order to further determine the meaning, he asked, have you found any more bugs? Your English pronunciation is a bit inaccurate, Long at Aotian pointed out Duguzhou's English pronunciation, except for the card that just got down, I haven't found any other problems, you are more like a bug. Duguzhou, me? Do I have any problems? Long at Aotian, even if it's a one-time item, everyone is leveling and leveling, you can kill dozens of mobs with one move, isn't it a bug? You picked up that one-time item, what's the name? Send it to me to see if the value is broken, if there is a problem, I will report this item loophole together. Problems, numerical collapse, loopholes. Duguzhou extracts keywords. Duguzhou's understanding is that an existence that is beyond the control of the rules and the rules will try to find and erase is a bug. He ignored Long at Aotian's invitation to send props, turned around and walked outside Tanyi Temple. Long at Aotian quickly followed, and said in his mouth, don't be so stingy, it's good, let's share the props of the game, and by the way, share where you got them, even if it is a one-time use, it's not bad, the game has just started, such powerful props are very valuable. King Ulov and Long at Aotian, one was confused by their appearance, the other wanted to set up powerful props, the two followed Duguzhou away from Tanyi Temple like conjoined twins, and their feet were still lightly followed by a black cat. The black cat's foot pads are very soft, stepping on the ground without making any sound. King Yu and Aotian did not find him. Duguzhou immediately sensed a demonic aura, grabbed the black cat and picked up the back of the neck of the black cat. Hey? When did this cat follow? The demon clan. Long at Aotian said. Wow! Such a cute kitten, can I lick you? King Yu said with love. Don't try to touch me. The black cat licked and licked his paws, the game is not allowed to molest players, of course I can lick myself, oh my, why am I so cute? The black cat sucked his paws hard, showing intoxicated eyes. King Yu lost interest in an instant, and said absent-mindedly, you are too wretched, wasting a cute cat face in vain. Long at Aotian doesn't like cats very much, and has a high resistance to black cat's appearance. He asked vigilantly, what are you doing with us? Who is following you? I am following him. The black cat twisted his body, and he was still carried by Duguzhou, making it inconvenient to move. I see when you tested the old monk just now. Not only was he not punished, but he also got some clues, so I came over and asked if you had any ways to level up the monster clan. Can't the demon clan do quest upgrades like us? King Yu asked. The black cat bowed his head in frustration, hey, we can't do the tasks that the human race can do, and we can't treat illnesses and save people in exchange for experience like the spirit race. The low-level monsters can't beat the mobs, and they need to level up. How difficult it is, you can see the level of the monsters on the leaderboard. At Aotian opened the rankings, screened out the demon clan, and sure enough, all the demon clan above were ranked first. I just said I gave them information to ask for help, how come there is no reply for so long? It turns out that it is only level 1. Long at Aotiandao. Duguzhou said at the right time, for help. King Yu explained to him, before we too thought you were the boss, we asked teammates for help, and the message was sent to the sea. It seems that we haven't found a way to upgrade the monster clan. In the keyboard era, no matter which race you do the same task. After the revision, the changes have changed a lot. The black cat sighed, I just made an agreement with a player to let him bring me to release, thinking that I was able to level up, but I didn't expect to be beaten to death by a monk once. There is no place for me to level up in Tanyi Temple, so I have to find another way. Duguzhou put down the frowning black cat and recalled the demon clan he met before. Some monsters devote themselves to cultivation, absorb the essence of the sun and the moon, and the cultivation speed will be slower. Duguzhou said to the black cat, the monsters should be bathed in the moonlight to increase their strength. If you can get a set of cultivation methods, it will be faster. Of course, you can also try to confuse humans. I do have a talent skill called charming, but it's not easy to use for mobs. There is also a moon worship training method, but the game starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. I haven't seen the moon yet. The black cat said. The man immediately hugged the black cat like a lost soul, sucked the cat's fur, and fell down weakly. Hey! I've leveled up. I've been upgraded to level 5 at once. The black cat said happily. It turns out that the innate skill of the demon clan is to absorb the essence of NPCs to upgrade. The upgrade speed is really fast. I'm going to find a human. Before he finished speaking, this hike monk in front of the Tanyi temple took out a Zen stick from nowhere and slammed it on the black cat. This hike monk shouted, "Gan! Harm people in front of Tanyi temple." Black cat. It turns out that different races have to choose a location to upgrade, and the demons within the Tanyi temple retreat. Meow! The black cat was resurrected in situ, and the originally curled claws stretched out, revealing soft paw pads. The holographic picture of ninefold heaven is extremely beautiful, even the death picture of the character is also beautiful. The female human character will gracefully rotate in a circle and fall to the ground, the skirt is spread out, and the corners of the clothes are dyed. The little blood is like a blooming blood-red flower, the character's face is spotless, and he quietly closes his eyes, with a teardrop hanging from the corner of his eyes, as if he is having a sad dream that he cannot wake up from. The death screen of the male character is less beautiful and more heroic. Not the human race, such as the cat in front of him. After his death, his limbs curled up, his body rolled up, and a special effect sunlight, moonlight or starlight at night, hit his little on the body of the cat. It makes the cat look a little peaceful and a little sad. And NBSP, and NBSP, and NBSP, and NBSP, level 2. Black cat checked his own level, shining with both eyes, absorbing a person's NPC level 4, killing one's 2, this sale value. And I can find a place far away from Tanyi Temple, and I will soon become the number 1 player on the leaderboard, ha 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 ha. He jumped up with a wild laugh, stepped on the shoulders of King Uaotian and ran away from Tanyi Temple, but when he brushed Duguzhou, he was once again held by this man on the back of the neck skin. Duguzhou's words to mention the black cat is to verify the connection between the original world and the game world, and he does not intend to cultivate a monster that the spirit of the human race everywhere. What are you doing? Let me go. The black cat attacked Duguzhou with its claws, but the claws were too short, and the position Duguzhou held was too clever. Encounter Duguzhou. The easier the road, the greater the price. Duguzhou said lightly. It is indeed easier to cultivate by sucking the essence of other living beings than to worship the moon. What's more, black cats are acting recklessly in the world. Do they really think their righteous sects are dead? If you don't even wait for the thunder tribulation, you will be surrounded and killed by the righteous sect. Duguzhou did not explain these things to the black cat. After all, he was not sure whether the rules of the game were consistent with the original world. He just doesn't want these NPCs to be killed because of his own advice, which will increase his evil causes, and I don't know when he will be rewarded. Nothing is worth it. I just need to stay away from Tanyi Temple. Let me go and be careful. I'm welcome. The black cat saw that the physical attack could not work, so he began to study other attack methods. After using the charm skill once, a skill introduction will appear after the skill. After the black cat clicked it, he found that the target of the charm talent skill is not divided into NPCs, players, and bosses, only the level difference. As long as the opponent is a human race and the level gap is within 10, they can charm the opponent indiscriminately, unless the opponent is a determined Buddhist cultivator or uses the heart-clearing mantra to resist. Meow, his big eyes were pitiful and cute, and his long tail swept Dugazwo's wrist. Charm is a group attack skill. Players within a range of 1 meter will be affected. The closer the distance, the greater the impact. As the level increases, the range of the skill will expand accordingly. The black cat gave a light meow, and the onlookers King Yu and Aotian were also affected. King Yu liked cats and was greatly affected. She grabbed Dugazwo's arm and said, "How can you hurt the cat is so cute." Long at Aotian also lost his soul and opened the paper fan, attacking Dugazwo. "Let go of that cat." The black cat saw that the effect was very good, and immediately called out again, "Meow." It turns out that this method can be used to make other players protect him. The demon clan is quite good. Seeing the black cat, Dugazwo sneered. Jiangziu wants to be one with the sword, and his mind must be as firm as a sharp blade, otherwise he will not be able to conquer the sword at all. Not to mention that his state of mind is far superior to the level 3 monsters who have not yet transformed. Even if the monsters come to tempt him, in Dugazwo's eyes, those monsters who are scratching their heads and making appearances are not worthy of Yesu's shoes. Dugazwo stretched out his long arm and grabbed the paper fan of Long at Aotian. Long at Aotian was in a controlled state, his speed and strength were all halved, and his weapon was easily taken away. The paper fan slapped King Yu Aotian's forehead twice. "Control. You just want to level up." Dugazwo said to the black cat, "I will fulfill you." "Meow? Why are you out of control?" The black cat shouted, "Are you a human? What are you doing?" Dugazwo carried the black cat into the Tanyi temple, carried it into the teleportation formation of the Karma forest, and threw the cat into a group of monsters. This is suitable for players below level 10, slowly play. Where is this place? Why do these little monsters look so scary? The black cat saw a monster attacking, raised its claws to resist, grabbed the monster's forehead with one paw, and saw a long blood bar on the monster's head, showing 1. The monsters have different initial attack power according to different species. If it randomly comes to the bear demon, tiger demon, and other demon clan, there is no charm talent skill, but the attack power is extremely high. And this cat demon is not worth mentioning in front of this group of demon beasts. Under the siege of monsters, the black cat began to bleed. Now everyone is a low-level player, and has never been out of the novice village, and other maps have not been unlocked. For resurrection, you can only choose to resurrect in place. Dugazwo kicked down a few bamboos and set up a stray formation. It is difficult for unfamiliar people to get out of the formation, and there will be a phenomenon of ghost hitting the wall, spinning in place. There are many monsters here, enough for you to reach level 10. Dugazwo gestured please to the black cat, and then left the Karma forest. King Yu and Aotian. They listened to the black cat's screaming meow ooh and watched him turn into a state of residual blood under the siege of monsters. Will it be a little cruel? Walking out of the Karma forest, King Yu said sympathetically, "You can only go online when you go offline, and there is no other resurrection point for resurrection. Charm doesn't work on mobs." He wants to. How can I get out of this forest? It's fine when it's night. Dugazwo looked up at the sky and determined the time according to the position of the sun. It's 3/4 of the hour, and when the moon reaches the treetops at the time of high, the demons can absorb the spiritual energy and power. Soaring. King Yu, what time is high shi? You 3 o'clock. They know that the time will be displayed in the lower right corner of the jade slip of the game control panel, and you can switch between the game time and the real time. The real time display is 18:30, and the game time is 3 o'clock. Zi Zhou Yin Mao. Aotian has a bit of the foundation of the heavenly stems and earthly branches, and he calculated it with his fingers. It's about 9 o'clock in the evening, 2.5 hours later. I hope he won't be so angry that he's not online all night, or he really won't be able to come out. King Yu sympathized. Although King Yu is sympathetic, she has no intention of saving the black cat. After all, it was the black cat who charmed them first. If Dugueswo hadn't been controlled, the three of them might be in a ball now. Such punishment is nothing. Moreover, it was said that the black cat took advantage of it, and Dugueswo also told him a good place to level up. How many times did he die? How do you say that the time is still measured by 12 hours? I counted it for a long time. Asked Long at Aotian. At first, Dugueswo was worried that they would find out their identities. After watching the players' various strange behaviors, he calmed down and said very casually, "Is this not in line with the game? It fits the scene very well, you are quite sentimental." Aotian naturally accepted Dugueswo's explanation. Dugueswo said, "You can convert the time, then I will test you. What time is 9 in the morning?" Long at Aotian pinched and counted, at the end of the hour, at the beginning of the hour. 12 am. 2 noon. 3 p.m. The end of the future, the beginning of the application. 6 p.m. You too. Don't ask, don't ask. Aotian raised his hands to beg for mercy, it's killing me. Dugueswo has obtained the specific online time of Yezhou, and according to Long at Aotian's answer, the modern time schedule corresponds to 7 Tai 8, so he will no longer torture Long at Aotian. I think you know a lot of things, obviously we are both low-level players, how do you know so much? King Yu asked curiously. Dugueswo recalled how Xia Yezu guessed the rules of the holographic game based on the keyboard era, and said, I also guessed based on the keyboard game. Dugueswo wanted to go to the town near Tanyi Temple to learn more about this game. After walking a few steps, he received a system prompt ding. You kill evil for the people, justice value +1. Ding. You create your own array, and the system will reward you with a blank jade slip, which has been collected as a storage magic weapon. Please name the formation and follow the prompts to make a jade slip and submit it to the game company for review. After the review is successful, you can pass the formation to other players in the form of transactions. He took a step and analyzed these two system prompts. When slaying monsters before, the system prompts slaying demons and eliminating demons, and the rewards are spirit stones, experience, herbs, useless swordsmanship, and other items. The prompts that suddenly appeared at this moment were killing harm for the people and justice values, which were different from before. And he is not doing anything now, just walking, why is he rewarded? Unless... Dugueswo looked at the direction of the karmic barrier forest, the cat should have been bitten to death by a monster once. Why did you stop? Yes, where are you going? Asked Long at Aotian. What is the value of justice? Dugueswo asked instead. I don't know, there was no such thing as justice in the keyboard era. Long at Aotian replied. The cat demon absorbs the essence of the human NPC, which is a harm to the people in the game. Dugueswo threw him into the karma forest to die, which was considered to be eliminating evil, so he got 1 point of justice. As for the use of justice value, I can't see it yet. Dugueswo temporarily suppressed his doubts, took out a blank jade slip from the storage magic weapon, did not read the system prompt, but used the method he was familiar with to arrange the formation of the Lost Trace array with Divine Sense engraved in jade slips. A ray of light flashed, and the submit button popped up in the void. Dugueswo clicked submit and waited for the game company's review. He walked out of the Tanyi Temple with his follower King Yu Aotian, came to the bustling town, went all the way to the edge of the town, and saw a very familiar tea shed. With the foot of the Kanglan Mountains the expensive tea shed is almost the same. Dugueswo was about to walk towards the tea house when a voice sounded in the sky announcement, Dugueswo created the Lost Array, the system has been approved and won the title of Array Mage. 9 Heaven has experienced the impact of the mobile game era, and it has never recovered. The game company knows that the holographic online game has great shortcomings in portability and time allocation compared with the mobile game. A way to attract players in order to have a place in the market. For this reason, the Zhuzhongtian holographic online game breaks the tradition and opens a new way of playing. In order to make the game closer to the real Xiangxia world, artificial intelligence is specially enabled as the main system of the game. As long as the command is written, the host system will make its own choice according to the command. Just like many artificial intelligence software on the market, which can write poems, compose lyrics, arrange music, etc. according to the title, it has strong autonomy, which greatly reduces the burden of programmers. The fact that players can create skills is also a new gameplay designed by game planning. This kind of gameplay gives players a higher degree of freedom, and the game is more sticky. This is not possible with traditional game systems, but with AI as the main system. The game planner will enter the skill review standards. As long as the standards are met and the difficulty of the game itself is not exceeded, the main system can review and release by itself. When Dugazwo uploaded the Jade slip, the main system scanned his data 3 times, came to the conclusion that the data was normal, and approved his array. During this period, the operation speed of the main system was slowed down by 0.001 seconds. Because the time was too short, it was not discovered. Dugazwo didn't know anything about what happened in the background of the game. He was a little surprised that he could actually write the exercises he knew before into this world, and no one found the problem. This means that as the injury gradually recovers, he will be able to perform more and more tricks, and the degree of freedom in the game world will also increase. Dugazwo looked at the jade slip on his palm that recorded the lost array, thinking that when he dealt with the karmic obstacles forest monsters before, he had used 5 elements sword art but did not receive the system hint. The biggest difference between the two is that lost array deals with players, while 5 elements sword art deals with combat NPCs, a fake character that can be resurrected at any time. Even if he is not recognized by the system, he can still use the 5 elements sword art to deal with monsters. Is there any difference in the recognized skills? When Dugazwo thought deeply, the players in the game had already exploded. Create your own tricks, and a title? This game is okay, there are so many ways to play. The name of Dugazwo does not indicate that the player is still an NPC, nor does it display the game ID. Without the ID, the player cannot be found at all. It must be a player who can create skills. The setting of not showing players and NPCs is really annoying. I created an account with my friends. I am a human and a demon. I thought that the one who appeared in the novice village with me after the account was established was he, made an appointment to fight monsters together, and then he bit me to death. Only later did I know that this is not my friend at all, but the target of the ghost exorcism mission in Xingxing village. It's the same sentence, I'm not necessarily a human, the game planning is a real dog. I couldn't find Dugazwo after checking for a long time. I couldn't bear it anymore. I went offline and called customer service. Countless players quit the game and called the customer service phone, asking about the various ways of playing the game. The customer service responded according to the above instructions, without saying any extra words. Long at Aotian, who was behind Dugazwo, also hung up and went offline. King Yu saw Dugazwo's contemplative look and didn't dare to disturb him. Dugazwoban was studying jade slips, when suddenly Long at Aotian's soul left the body, so he hurriedly came to Long at Aotian to diagnose his pulse. At Aotian's pulse is weak, his soul is separated from the body, only one breath of anger is left to hang his life, and the whole person becomes stupid. Dugazwo patted his face curiously, but he didn't expect the game world to have a soulless situation. He hung up. King Yu explained, you triggered a new gameplay just now. He guessed that you might be confused, so he hung up and went offline to check the information. Dugazwo poked Hailong at Aotian in the forehead, and Aotian fell to the ground like a tumbler and bounced again. King Yu was also the first time she saw the holographic online game hanging up. She thought it was quite fun, and followed Dugazwo to poke Long at Aotian in the face. It turns out that the holographic game hangs up like this. It's different from the keyboard. The keyboard can't be poked. King Yu smiled. Zhou thought that someone said that this game pit is the first time to play this kind of game, so he tentatively said, "The heartbeat is almost gone, and the breathing is very light, why does this happen?" King Yu thought for a while and said, "Probably because the holographic helmet can read the player's body information and simulate it in the game. He takes off the helmet now but does not shut down and go offline. The helmet is separated, and the helmet cannot read my information." "Maybe so," Zhou said. "It turns out that the holographic game is to transmit people's consciousness to this mysterious world through some magic weapon worn on the head." At this time, Long at Aotian came back, and he said angrily, "The customer service phone is too difficult to call, and the line is always busy." But Xiao Ao got through, and he sent me a reply from the customer service. "Xiao Ao is offline too," King Yu said, "why didn't you reply when I sent him a distress message just now?" Aotian said, "Don't mention it, he is a willow demon, the big tree at the entrance of the village, he can't move at all, and he goes offline after 5 minutes of going online. He has been calling customer service to ask what's wrong. Upgrade, didn't get my message at all. It's too miserable." King Yu said with emotion, "Fortunately, I chose the human race at the beginning. It doesn't matter, I told him that he can practice on the moon at night." Aotian said, "The demon clan, the spirit clan, and the human clan can operate in the novice village, but what about the demon clan?" Zhou inserted into the conversation between the two without a trace. "I also have a friend who chose the demons. He said that the novice village of the demons is different from the human. It is said that the other side can be upgraded. It is said that you can only go to the main city after level 20. Aotian replied Road. Zhou, how does the customer service explain about the jade slip? Long at Aotian, customer service has given several conditions. First of all, it must be a skill that does not exist in other games in the world, this is to avoid the problem of plagiarism. Secondly, it must be in line with the current game world background, such as refiners can't make mechas, and they can't use skills such as magic fighting chi. They must conform to the traditional culture of cultivating immortals. Finally, there must be players who cause damage due to this skill, and the skill can really take effect, in order to be recognized as successful. What are the characteristics of the identified skills? Zhou asked. At Aotian, it can be traded, taught, given, and self-created skills can be copied on other jade slips. Copying requires spirit stones and the player's blood, spirit power, etc., and different levels of self-created skills have a number of copies. Low-level skills can be copied multiple times, and the more advanced the skills, the fewer copies. Zhou, why is there a limit on the number of times? The customer service explained that according to the tradition of the cultivation world, the more advanced the trick, the more hidden it is. Generally, the master of the secret mind method will only pass it on to 1 or 2 disciples. That's right. Self-created skills can only be purchased from the creator and cannot be resold. Long at Aot and Ao. Zhou glanced at the annotations of the Lost Array, showing that it can be copied 100 times. Disciples and cultivators know this formation, no wonder it can be copied so many times. Next, it's my turn to ask, Great God, how did you create this formation? Long at Aotian did not hesitate to call Zhou the Great God, he deserves it. This question really stumped Zhou, he couldn't explain his mystery, he could only briefly say, I'm good at arithmetic and Go, so I understand the formation method. King Yu and Aotian were silent for a while, and when they heard the arithmetic, they immediately thought of mathematics, so they decisively gave up asking for the method of creation skills, but asked, then, Great God, how many times have you copied? What about the next time? Can you sell it to us? Zhou didn't care very much and said, 100 times, you can also give it to you. The whole server is limited to 100 pieces, can you describe it with enough? King Yu clutched her heart, do you know that I want to chop my hands when I hear the word limited? Aotian is relatively calm, the number of 100 is not much, but not much. It seems that the game company wants to control the power of the player's self-created skills within a relatively special range, which can not only encourage players' self-created skills and increase the stickiness of the game, but also limit the number of other players and prevent them from creating their own skills. Skills dominate and affect the skills of the game itself. Aotndao, great God, let's set a price. I remember that at that time this skill prevented the black cat from walking out of the woods. It is a good skill when everyone's level is low, take it for free, we're sorry. That's right, the first one in the whole game. King Yu also nodded. Duguzhou's choice of gift is also a test of their character. And they showed gratitude, and even considered Duguzhou, but they could make friends. After all, he knows the world and needs to get information from the player. It doesn't matter, you two can provide blank jade slips. Duguzhou said. King Yu and Aotian didn't expect to know such a good-tempered god, and they rushed to the newbie village spirit tool shop, consuming low-grade spirit stones to buy 2 blank jade slips. This game has 2 kinds of coins, one is ordinary copper coins and silver coins, which can be used to buy some daily necessities, such as steamed buns, tea, and other items. The other is spirit stones, which are used to buy weapons, equipment, jade slips, spirit tools, talismans and other items. It is conceivable that the use of silver coins in the later stage will be very small. If the game enables currency exchange, the real currency that can be exchanged must also be spirit stones. Duguzhou recorded the lost array on 2 jade slips, and the number of copies of the original array has become 98. Aotian and King Yu received the jade slip and said enthusiastically, let's go kill monsters and try the power of the formation. No hurry, Duguzhou's eyes fell on the tea shed in the corner of the town, I'll go have a bowl of rough tea first.